Bangor was the starting point for this year's circuit, and on Good Friday evening it was a cold and windswept location as the 167 crews lined up to face 5 days of driving over 1,500 miles with over 600 of them on high-speed special stages. Favourite and winners for the last two occasions, Roger Clark and Jim Porter, were first away in the escort. Then 1 minute behind came Ulstermen Adrian Boyd and Beattie Crawford, the top private entrants and previous winners. They promised to be Clark's main rivals. Or would it be Derry's Cathal Curley, who was being co-driven by Enniskillen chemist Austin Fraser, a very formidable crew? The first Swedish crew to leave were Heinrichsen and Karlström in a rally cadet. They were followed a minute later by their fellow countrymen Jonsson and Quist in a Saab V4. Rosemary Smith and Alice Watson were carrying the hopes of British Leyland in the new Austin Maxi, which was having its first international rally. Rosemary was trying for her 10th ladies' prize in the circuit. And so into the cold March night they went, all hopeful of some reward. In the first stage at Strangford, Peter Cullen and Paddy McClintock's Cooper S lost its steering and crashed. Ronnie McCartney went out with a blown head gasket, and Ronnie White had a drive shaft come away from the engine. The first three were out of Circuit 70. Shortly after midnight, the cars crossed the border at Cullerville, where Roger Clark was first through. He had his troubles with a jammed throttle cable, but he managed to drive. And there were other stories coming in. Rosemary Smith reported on what she saw at Altnamacken.
So one of them off in the last. I think it's Adrian Boyd was off. It's the start of the last.
Yes, Adrian Boyd.
Adrian Boyd went off in a fairly big way. He got cut out, I think, with a wee bump just before a right-hand corner. Yeah, he might get on though.
Robin Eyre Munsell had something happen to him
exactly
also.
What happened? Did you go over on his roof? I lost it on a right-hand corner and it went completely out and back on its wheels, but unfortunately pointing the wrong way.
An example of the tenacity of rally drivers. Others going through had mixed feelings about conditions.
Sweet it is, smooth.
Much tougher than last year, you know. I've only done it last year, as you know, but
yeah,
I found it's a hell of a lot more slippery.
At this stage, the leaders were Roger Clark, Barry Lee and John Bloxham, and the Swedes Kullang, Heinrichsen and Danielsson were not far behind. Noel Smith, the Irish rally champion, was in the top six. 6 more stages, including the 24-mile Sally Gap, followed before it was breakfast time at Blessington. All enjoyed the break, some the chat.
What? Yeah, you're not near us, we're all right.
Adrian Boyd was also there, washing away the troubles he encountered at Altnamacken.
We got out of the tarred tracks in the centre of the road onto a wee bit of loose gravel on the side, and the car slid over the edge and dropped into a bog about 6 feet down on its side. So I had to wait for about till the crowd gathered around it, and eventually we got about a dozen people around the car, drove it back into the bog, and they all pushed while I drove up the bank, and we managed to push it over the top and onto the road again.
As cold daylight filters through, the car set off once more, and now the leaderboard has changed slightly. Clark has stretched his lead to nearly 6 minutes over Barry Lee. John Bloxham has lost ground after a faulty fuel pump, and Noel Smith is third. Now Eamon Cutter Ascollev, Ossan Rally Lane Ulbrichte. So is Eyre Munsell. The first speed section is at the Glen of the Mark. Next stages were taken in Wicklow and Kilkenny, and it was after midday before the cars tackled the 15 miles at Cannon Wood near Clonmel. Clark was pulling further ahead. Problems here, but he solved them. Charlie Gunn's Escort was suffering from a faulty oil pump. Noel Smith was having his best circuit ever and now was lying third. Barry Lee, the rallycross expert and still second overall, enjoyed flinging his car about on the loose gravel. Chris Slater was settling into his first smooth rally, and Andres Coulang in an Opel Rally Cadet was opening most people's eyes with some very daring driving. John Bloxham was trying desperately to make up the time he lost at Sally Gap. 4 more stages were tackled in Tipperary and Cork, and shortly before 5, the cars started checking in at a crowded Killarney. Hurried repairs were carried out, the cars were locked away for the night, and crews went away to catch up on lost sleep. The leaderboard had changed once again. It was now Clark, Lee, Coulang and Smith. The Swedes were making their challenge. Slater was 5th, and another Swede, Jan Heinrichsen, was 6th. They were certainly adapting quickly to Irish conditions. Sunday morning, there are 250 miles to be covered. Are they looking forward to it?
No, we've slight braking problems. We hope to get them fixed up tonight, but I'm just going to try and stay on the road today. It's a long way to learn.
Carefully as always.
A little bit behind at the moment. We'll see what we can get back today.
Tá fear one, Jackie Machmar got with your team for she drop behe, right?
Have you got any problems with the car?
No, the brakes are... we're going to fix the brakes and then it's okay.
And then there's 14 and a half miles of twisty Mowles Gap, in the past the end of the rally for so many. After this, Roy Fiddler retired his BMW with broken transmission, and there was the Tim Healy pass for those still running. Stages followed before the 90-odd cars still in the rally got back to Killarney, where there was a much-needed 20-minute service period before the cars were put away for the night. Today, Clark pulled out another 3 minutes. Cathal Curley and Adrian Boyd got back on the leaderboard. Andres Kulang retired at Cod's Head. Noel Smith was back in 4th place, having been overtaken by Chris Slater. Kulang's Swedish comrades had a busy time during the day, trying to repair their brakes. Barry Lee was also bothered by faulty brakes, but quick work on the part of the Ford mechanics kept his hopes very much alive. He was still second. Today's service period was feverish for some crews, but with help like Garrett Gunn about, there was no lack of manpower. Next morning they were off again to face the toughest 25 hours of the rally. 4 stages brought them to Limerick, which they reached before midday. Then on to County Clare, and from there to County Galway. Noel Smith went out at Sugar Hill. Charlie Gunn retired at Loughrea. But Roger Clark was enjoying a bank holiday drive.
It's great. Jim's driving, I'm sleeping.
Supper was taken at Killadees, County Fermanagh, and there Cathal Curley, who was now 4th, was really in trouble. His Escort had a very faulty engine.
We put in a gallon of water, approximately a gallon of water, and we drove it on to the manor house. Didn't seem to be too bad until we stopped and pulled in for petrol. And after we got the petrol into the car went on to 3 cylinders. When we eventually got to the manor house and got our service crew on the job, we discovered that the cylinder head gasket had gone. But as we stand at the moment, well, we're still going to have a bash.
Barry Lee was full of high hopes.
Well, it is for me, you know. Tonight is the big night. You know, I want to get to the finish. I'd like to try and win, but I don't think I can at the moment. We're too far behind Roger. But I was just talking to Jackie here, and he said that the roads are pretty bad, and we've got a tired car, and I'm tired. But there you are, you know. Let's just hope and pray.
Julie, what do you think of all this thing of Circuit of Ireland?
I think it's marvellous, marvellous.
With a full meal behind them, they were off again. Carl Curley's worst fears were realised when he retired within an hour. Pat Fay and Frank O'Donoghue of Dublin also went out when they were hit by a non-competing car. Mick Dolan of Moate was now leading driver from the south, and Robert McBurney from Ballymena, the leading Irishman. John and Dick Keating retired their escort in County Donegal, and in that county, some of the toughest section of the entire rally was experienced. By daylight on Tuesday, the 70 cars still running reached Cam Forest, some short distance from Dungiven. There it was sheer disaster for Barry Lee, who was still second and competing in only his third international rally.
We got to the Cam Forest, you know, the special stage there, and everything was going fine up until then. We got about a quarter of a mile out from the stage, and just suddenly there's a big bang with 4,000 metres on the clock in third gear. And I just got out of the car, you know, I was so choked. Because, you know, I was running number 13 this year, as you know, and this has been niggling me all the time. Though I haven't admitted this because, you know, you just don't do this. I have been, you know, a bit worried and a bit frightened about it.
And so the finish at Larne and a large crowd to greet Roger Clark. Judy, his wife, was one of the first to congratulate him. Rosemary Smith was greeted with a bottle of champagne.
Thank you very much. How about that? How about that?
After a day of paperwork by control officers, the formalities of assessing results were over, and the evening was devoted to the presentation of prizes. Among 10 class winners were James McCosh of Wexford and Arnie Poole of Dublin. McCosh took Class 4 in his Lotus Cortina, and Poole won Class 3 for his Cooper S. The Castlereagh Trophy for the best performance by a driver from the Republic went to Mike Dolan from Moate, County Westmeath, who finished 8th. For the first time in 3 years, the team award was won by Vauxhall Viva drivers, and Dubliners Des Bradley and Paul Gleeson piloted one of them. The Swedes had proved immensely popular throughout the rally. 3 of their crews finished from an original entry of 11. Their appetite for rallying is enormous, and they assure us they'll be back again. Most of the kudos, of course, as always, centre around the winner. Roger Clark at last completes a hat-trick of rally wins, something that's eluded him several times in the past. One begins to feel that if the others are to have any chance in the circuit, Clark will have to be paid to stay away.